Hi, my name's A.Mora, and this is my ethnography interview. I have my interviewee here with me, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Please share with me anything that comes to mind for you that informs you of your culture.
Uh, for me, my culture is kind of based off a geographic disparity in America, where I have half in the Northeast and then half out of Appalachia. And the Appalachian was kind of folks who came over as indentured servants in Virginia and North Carolina, and then once their service was over, pushed into what was the frontier then, um, and into eastern Kentucky. And then so for me, that's kind of hardworking, family oriented. And then conversely, in the Northeast, very post World War One immigration of um, German, Irish, Scotch folks who were trying to leave the pretty bad economic situation in Europe post World War One, whereas we prospered. Europe had some issues.
You seem to know quite a bit about where you come from. That's awesome. How did you come to know about what you know about your culture?
Just talking with family, the older people in my family. I never, I never missed an opportunity to talk to the old timers, and always look forward to hearing their stories about what the family meant and what we had endured previous.
If at all possible, please share with me any stereotypes you've heard shared about your culture.
Well, from the Kentucky side, we're all hillbillies, we're all ignorant, we all marry our cousins, and we're all toothless. Um, kind of the fringe outlaw, um, kind of anti-government, um, law, from the sort of Kentucky side. They just want to be free people who live on their own terms. Um, and then from the northeastern side, um, I think the stereotype is uh, I think the stereotype is that we're kind of somehow rich or snooty or more educated than other people. When in reality, I grew up in a very blue collar kind of area of
Do you believe a lot of those stereotypes to be true?
that. um, I've seen examples where those stereotypes could be kind of justified in an outsider's eyes on both sides. You know, my family in Kentucky, they talk slow. They have a very thick Southern drawl. They live a very, very simple life in an austere environment. For instance, my grandfather's road, the main road that we drove into his house, didn't get paved until 1994. They didn't have running water until a couple years after that, besides a kind of inertia well that pumped to all the homes. And then the stereotype to the Northeast, I think, uh, we're all used to a more fast-paced life, which makes us more abrasive, and um, it could be seen to outsiders that it's, arrogance or being snooty or thinking that we're better than everybody else, when in reality, it's just, the nature and the environment that we grew up in.
So in a way, they kind of do match what you know about.
Yes, yes. Easy for those stereotypes in my mind to kind of take on a life of their own, and for an outsider to perceive those in a way that is realistically inconsistent, but from the outsider certainly seems correct.
Do you think that you personally fit any of those stereotypes?
um, no, but I think it's because I think that I could have had I grew up in the Northeast, vice Kentucky. Had I grown up in Kentucky, I very easily could have. Having grown up in the Northeast, I can say that as a younger man, I absolutely did. I absolutely did. And I think it's just, kind of the life experience that I've accumulated over a lot of different places with a huge swath of the population and how that has assimilated into one organization um, has kind of weeded my thinking out of that. But absolutely.
Yeah. What emotions are present for you when you're treated as though you are a stereotype?
Um, Again, coming from the Northeast and that kind of pseudo kind of arrogance and it was kind of a source of pride. Yeah. Wasn't um, it wasn't anything that I thought negatively. I thought of it kind of as a badge of honor type thing. And we're like, hell yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Now, had I been, grown up in Appalachia in a much more economic, um, different situation, I think that the effect would probably have been much more disparaging. Um, but it's important to understand that by and large, the folks in the regions of the country that I'm from stay there. They never leave. So they would never be exposed to what that stereotype is, especially before the advent of social media and the internet and all those kinds of things. Uh, it would have never been a factor in my life had I stayed in either of those or were raised in either of those environments. It wouldn't have been an issue.
It just kind of would have been
The
the way it
status quo. There would be no deviation. There would be no difference.
do you see that in a lot of your family that's still in the area? They just kind of, even if they do hear the stereotypes, they
Yeah, yeah. To the kind of Appalachian side, I think that because they all broke out and they all became very educated, the ones that I interacted with in a very, very large family that I know a very small fraction of, they kind of see it. Um, but to the northeast side of the family, I mean, they kind of are the stereotype for what a southeastern Massachusetts person is. That's what they talk that way. They only drink Dunkin' Donuts. They love the Patriots and the Red Sox, and they are those things. They really, really are.
if at all possible, please share with me any stereotypes you've heard about my culture.
I think that for your specific culture, it's broken down into really two time periods, right? It was everything before the 2016 election and everything after the 2016 election. Um, you know, uh, having never having grown up in a semi-urban environment with a very diverse background of people, um, there were always stereotypes associated with whatever the minority section was growing up. So it was either Greek or Portuguese, where I grew up. Because it was dominantly Italian, Irish, and German. Um, but I think that the stereotype pre election was it was very hardworking people who were trying to make a better life and were willing to do anything it took to make that better life, to include potentially breaking laws and violating borders and all those other kind of things. And I think that's kind of what has stuck with me. And again, the background of where I've been with hundreds and hundreds of Mexican Americans, and you know, uh, I know their work ethic. I know they're good people. I know that they're family oriented. I know that, like most Catholics, they put family first. Now, if I hadn't had those experiences and only knew what I knew from southeastern Massachusetts, and now was in post 2016, you're all criminals, rapists, drug dealers, mules. You want to let ISIS into the country and let Al Qaeda run rampant in American shore, and that's obviously ludicrous, right? That's insane.
So now I want to ask you if you can ask me these questions here.
Sure. Do you believe? Okay, if at all possible, please share any. Oh, start right there. Okay. Do you believe the stereotypes to be true?
I believe that of course, there are people in every culture, every race, every religion who meet the stereotypes that, we hear. That's part of why we hear them.
Right.
It's definitely not true about me. I can say that I have family members who meet the stereotypes. So I think it really depends on your background and the values that you're taught in your home. Because
Sure.
even though we know that every race or religion has their stereotypes, doesn't mean that every family within that race or religion or ethnic background was raised the same
Sure.
way.
Of course.
So
Of course. All right. Do you fit any of the stereotypes?
I don't think so. Um, I No, I was raised mainly by my mom, who is Native American and Caucasian. So I kind of fell out of the lifestyle that a lot of my family was into when I was really young. So I was taught to be, I mean, I guess in some ways I was taught to be proud of where I came from and to work really hard and you get what you give,
Mm,
which I think I got from my father's side of the family, but for the most part, no, yeah, I don't meet them.
sure. All right. What emotions are present for you when you are treated as though you are a stereotype?
I think I get frustrated, angry sometimes because that's not me, that's not who I am, that's not how I was raised.
Sure.
But there's also an understanding that that's what a lot of people know about my my race. So okay, so now I'm going to go back to asking you questions.
Sure.
From your point of view, what is the biggest difference or differences between us?
Um, Geographical.
You,
There is a very big difference by the regions in which you are raised in this country, and that has to do with the culture that are associated with it. I think also probably our experience
mm,
with dealing with. I'm not a minority. I will be in 30, 40 years, but I'm not a minority. So I think there's a disparity there, and I think probably too. Environmentally, beyond the regionalization, just the environment that you grow up in. I had 9 months of cold, dark winter. You lived in California. Very, very, very different, and it does shape the way that you think about things.
definitely. From your point of view, what's the biggest similarity or similarities between us?
I think one is that we are, kind of smart enough to recognize that, these things exist and that there are ways to break down those stereotypes. And I think, two, um, we're at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We just want to provide for our family.
If I was your therapist, what would you want for me to know, or how would you like for me to act that would make you feel more comfortable?
I don't think really anything. Not just because I don't kind of look at people that way. And where I wouldn't look at you and say, oh, there's a Mexican lady, or there's a Native lady, or there's a white lady. I would just say, hey, there's a woman who's here to help me. That's really it.
As we close, if there was one moment that made you feel less comfortable, can you share what that was and why you felt discomfort during the interview?
Um, I think I don't really think anything too much, except for the fact that maybe you're bringing up kind of an uncomfortable subject for some people it can really affect people, and especially if there was a very big disparity between us.
Finally, what could I have done differently to help you feel more comfortable?
I don't know, maybe like in a initial thing, this is what we're going to do and why we're going to do it. And we're going to talk about this, and this may or may not make you uncomfortable, but we still need to work through it.
Well, I want to thank you for helping me out with this,
You're
taking the
quite
time to
welcome.
do it,
No, thank
even
you.
if it was a little bit uncomfortable.
It's okay.
I appreciate it.
No, thank you.